fun is doing the thing. I don't care if I'm laying on my bed writing a film script, a play, or a book or something. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter.
It's the writing.
I next to put the pencil on the paper, the ballpoint on the paper.
I'm glad to hear that. You did once say, I always feel like I'm writing with film.
Yeah, that's what you're doing. You spend 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever, until your money runs out, accumulating what you would be doing. It would be as if you were gathering words from a dictionary and keep getting all the words you think are going to be relevant to the story. Well, I'm gathering all the footage, and then I'm going to make it into a story. And I change it. It's very malleable in the editing. I don't write something and it's all, rigid. It's very malleable. I put the end at the beginning and put the middle in the end and change this and make it about something else and put in narration and change the direction totally. For me, it's a living, breathing thing till it's completely finished and I have to hand it in. So I always feel that I'm writing and I'm happy writing, and I don't, as I say, I don't really care if I wrote stuff and threw it in the drawer and long after I'm dead, people read it and love it, or, that the public is spared it because it's so terrible.
Well, okay. Now, this is interesting to me because it seems to me what you just said is kind of a more optimistic view of filmmaking that I've read, in the sense that I wonder whether making a film for you is the least enjoyable part of the process. The more I read about it.
The actual filming. The actual filming is hard.
Yeah, it's hard work.
Again, when you're home writing, you write. If you get a little tired, you go make yourself tea, and or you get on the treadmill, or go for a walk. You're your own boss. You're writing. Nothing like writing. When you're making a film, all of a sudden they hit the taxi meter at 150 grand a day or more, and they say, well, you've got 8 weeks, and then you're not going to have any more money to pay the cab driver. And you got to start working, and you got to get up in the morning, and it's maybe cold out and rainy and unpleasant. And you got to get out there and be funny at 7 o'clock in the morning and keep going and then wolf down your lunch and be funny all afternoon and make the right decisions. And everybody's coming to you with decisions that you're completely unqualified to make. Do I know which gun I should pick for the guy to have, or which costume that she should wearing a red blouse or an orange blouse, or and these shoes, and do I want the cigarette case to look like this, and what kind of car would he drive? And I don't know any of these things, and I make those decisions, and in ignorance and in terror, and you're working all day, and then you knock off at night and you're exhausted. You look at what you did the day before, and it's always, oh God, I could have done that so much better. And then you go home, you're exhausted. Before you know it, you're waking up in the morning. And now, this is not physically pleasant. It's a difficult regimen. But that only lasts. For me, because I have limited money, 8-10 weeks.
Okay, but to me, it's not just the physical. If I at least read what you've written, it's also the intellectual. You say, it seems to me that from what you're writing, that the writing is the most fun for you. You said once, when I actually start writing, I can celebrate, because that is the day that everything's over. Because all the agonizing work is done before that, which I assume which amazes me. So for you, the thinking of the plot and all that stuff is agonizing, and then once you somehow have it in your brain, do you make notes?
Almost none.
And so you agonize over all that thinking, and then you write, and you say it's just an ultimate pleasure. But you say thinking of it, planning it, plotting it is that's hard. So,
yes, writing it down is pleasurable. When you're sitting in a room by yourself, or walking the streets by yourself, and you're trying to think of what to do and envision a story with characters that begins here and there's subplot here and you're trying to think the thing out. This is a nightmare, and this goes on for weeks, maybe months before you come up and you discard this. You're working on this idea, thinking about nothing else for 6 weeks in a row, and then you realize this is not going to be a good movie. This is not going to work. And you start from scratch again to think of, well, do I want to do a movie about a car thief? Do I want to do a movie about a parachute jumper? Do I want to do something about a brain surgeon? You're thinking, and then finally you come up with an idea and it structures out. When you have that and you sit down to write it, it's pleasurable. It's fun to write, act one, scene one.
But it seems, you write about it as if it's such a pleasure. And it surprises me to hear that. First of all, it's amazing to me that you can have it all in your head and then you can just write out the dialogue and the scenes. It's so structured in your brain already that you just write it in no time. You just, as far as from what I read, you just zoom it out, boom, boom, and you enjoy every moment of it. Which, by the way, I have to say, from my experience, is somehow the opposite of my experience. Not so much, in writing, but also in science. It's the thinking that's the fun part, and the puzzling that's the fun part. And gosh, after you've figured it out and you have to write up the paper, it's the last thing in the world you want to do is write it up. And so a lot of people just leave it, in their drawers for a long time. So the writing is much less fun than the puzzling, which is, so it was
interesting. That you like to figure it out.
Yeah. And then it's funny for me when I'm writing, then in my other hat, when I write books, in some sense I enjoy the writing, but only once I get into it. The thought of sitting down sometimes is overwhelming to me. And that barrier of, oh my God, how am I going to, I have this idea and I love the idea, but how am I going to put it into words? And then once I do, what I enjoy most about writing is I have no idea where it's going. When I start to write, I think I'm going to, even in the nonfiction books, and I think I know the subject, but I think I'm going to head here. And then the writing takes me over here to a very roundabout way of describing where I thought I'd end up at the very beginning. But for you, when you're writing,
that would be fatal for me.
It would be fatal for you?
Yeah, I have to know where I'm going. Otherwise, you're working for weeks and you start writing and you come up with 20, 50, 70 pages and you're out. You haven't figured out where the flower flowers, you know what I mean? Then you got 60 pages that are quite good, but it doesn't go anyplace, and you have no climax, you have no story that matures. So it's that I have to know.
So when you sit down and write, you know where you're going, and you're very rarely surprised that the writing takes you anywhere else. You haven't had that experience ever, where you even when it works out, whether you think you're going to write a movie about this, and you have the whole plot in your mind, and then when you start to write it.
That's a bad feeling.
Lucky man.
No. I know this from other writers too. You're out of control. Your characters take over. They say, and if your characters take over, you're out of control. You want to control. Someone who's writing dramatically for a movie or play or something. I could, if I just had a good climax only to start. I got it. I'm home free. Yeah. I can always get, Moss Hart said, third act problems are the killers. Nobody has first act. And I understand that completely. If you have a good third act and you know what you're, then the rest is all easy. You can get up there 500 ways. It doesn't matter. So, but you have to know, or I have to know, where I'm going specifically, and I don't want to start writing till I know I have that. Otherwise, really, you do write. When I wrote Purple Rose of Cairo, the guy comes off the screen and he sees Mia Farrow in the audience, and she falls in love with him, and he with her, and the guy has stepped off the screen, and the characters are panicked on the screen, and people are coming into the movie house to see it. Now I'm finished with 50 pages, and I'm sitting there, and it doesn't go anywhere. I got no place to go. So then what happens? Now he's off. He's met her. She likes him. Now what do I do? So I was out, and I took the thing. This was after a lot of work. I threw it in the drawer, and I figured, well, that's it. It just doesn't work. And 6 months later, after I did another film or something, it occurred to me that the actor who came off the screen was a screen thing of an imaginary character. What if the actor playing him in Hollywood came back and there were two of them, and there was all of a sudden, in 2 weeks' time, the thing just flowered like a rose bush, and I had a very good story, a film of mine that I really liked.
It's a great movie. But that's so for you, when you say, then I start writing, it's finished, that wasn't an example of it, but what it really means is when you have the good third act and you know where it's going, then it's a pleasure.
Yeah, but I usually structure out most of the thing in my mind. I know where I'm going, and I know where the fun is going to be. And
okay, so the thinking and the puzzling is agonizing. The writing is a pleasure, but then what I meant by the fact it's not that maybe the making the film isn't the favorite part. It wasn't just the physical problems. You say as the process goes on, casting, shooting, editing gets worse and worse for me. When I'm finished, I look at it and I'm disappointed. The idea for the film was so beautiful and everything's so great, and then little by little I wounded it, writing, casting, shooting, editing, mixing. I don't want to see it again. So. And I always wonder, when I first met you, I remember I was flying from Australia and I happened to see Annie Hall again after 25 years. I hadn't seen it before. And I told you, and you said, I haven't, and you told me, I haven't seen it since I made it. And now I know that you don't watch any of your movies after you make them. Is this the reason?
Yeah, because you can only be disappointed. The things on film, if I saw Annie Hall now, I think, oh, I could do this so much better. I got a much better joke for here. Why didn't I say this? How could I say such a stupid thing? So what do I want to torture myself for? So I don't ever watch them because I can't do anything about them. So I don't watch them.
Would you be happiest if in an imaginary world you could just have ideas for films and write the scripts and never make the movies? And they paid you?
No, I have to make the movie so it comes out the way I want it. I did that on my first movie, What's New Pussycat? And it was an embarrassing, stupid movie and a terrible experience. And I vowed that I would never...
never do it. That was what made you decide to go for always have the control of writing and directing and
yes, because you're shocked. To you, to me in this case, it's common sense what to do, but you give it to someone else, and you can't believe that they don't understand the simple common sense. They're not stupid. They're good and they're professionals, but you know. I think Groucho once said that he was talking about timing and said people don't realize that just one extra syllable totally will ruin a joke. They don't understand that, and I see that. I say, can't you see that if I say he woke me up, it's funny. If I say he awakened me, it's not funny. One is going to make an audience laugh, and the other is not. And they can't. So it's just like if someone said to me, can't you hear that when the guy comes to that passage that it's a little flat, his clarinet is a little flat, or his trumpet's gone a little sharp there? I say, no, it sounds great to me. And he said, no, you don't hear it a little sharp? We're going to take that passage again. And, well, people don't hear it, and you can't believe it if you can do it yourself. So I have to make those things because so
they're not ruined.
I want them to be what I want them to be.
You want to ruin yourself instead of letting someone else do it.
Yes, exactly. If it's going to be ruined, I want to ruin it.
But I actually was asking a sort of somewhat different direction. If there was an imaginary world where no one would make the film, where you could just have ideas and write scripts and not have the agony of watching.
I won't write film scripts, for sure. Because film is a director's medium.
Okay, so you said somewhere making the film is a big struggle, but I would rather struggle with films than other things. So it's really, you do want to make the movies. I mean, movies are what you want to do.
Well, movies are only what I want to do because people back them.
Yeah.
And the hardest part about making a movie is raising the money for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if people back them, if people keep coming forward and saying, yes, you need this much money for a movie, we'll put it up, I'd be a fool to say no.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But if someone tomorrow said to me, I can't get any backing, no one's going to back any of your films, they don't like you, then fine. I mean, that's okay with me. I'm very happy to write for the theater. I would not write film scripts and give them to other people.
Yeah, okay.
I write plays.
But you wouldn't write the film scripts. But okay, but the struggle, but you realize it's a struggle, and it seemed to me you want to, at some level, you want to struggle. And because, I mean, one of the things that I admire so much about you, again, having known you personally and learned this, is your work ethic. And the discipline you have, and you said it. You said the work is all that matters. All I do is work. If I just keep working, everything else will fall in place. You finish a movie, you don't luxuriate in it. You're the next day. You're writing the next movie, and it's work. And you say you don't care whether the films are successful or not, whether they're,
right. The fun is making the film. When you're a kid, you think, oh, I'll write this film, or I'll direct this film, I'll make it, and I will be famous, and I'll go to parties, and I'll win Oscars, and I'll do, and you envision some glamorous fantasy thing. Then you realize quite quickly when you get older and you get into film that all of that is less than meaningful. I mean, none of it is satisfying or fun or anything. And what you look at and say, hey, what was really fun was creating that thing. And so when you're finished with a film, I don't mean to be arrogant. When I say I don't care, I always like when people like my films.
Yeah.
But if they don't like them, there's nothing I can do about it. I made the film and there it is. So what am I going to sit home and brood that they don't? I made the film. I gave it my best shot. I hope you like it. If you don't like it, nothing I can do about it. If you do like it, great. But I'm not concerned with that. I'm concerned with when Annie Hall won the Academy Awards, someone said, weren't you thrilled? I'm thinking to myself, when Annie Hall won that, I had made Annie Hall a year ago. Yeah. I was working on another film. I'm not interested. People now will call me and tell me how a film is doing.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I don't care how the film is doing. Do I care that in Budapest or Omaha or someplace the film had a great weekend? What does that mean to me? It means nothing. I finished that film, 6, 8, 10 months ago, and haven't seen it since or thought about it since. It's history.
Yeah,
so I don't really care. I have a film now that's playing in Europe. It doesn't matter to me. I finished another film. I'm worried about the editing on this film and getting the jokes right and getting the romances right and things. And I'm thinking, God, I have an idea for a new film.
But let me ask you. Well, first of all, that's what I've always admired, that attitude, which is so amazing. I mean, I've written books, and I remember agonized. I mean, I just wanting to know how it's doing and. Was this always your attitude, or were you, when you started, did you have that pie-eyed view of, I want to win the awards, I want to be famous, I want to have the glamour, or did you never suffer under that illusion?
I never thought about awards because I was thinking of survival. I had so much trouble with Take the Money and Run. I was so sure it was going to flop because I was such an amateur putting it together, and Bananas, I wasn't even thinking in those terms. And then when I came to the movie Love and Death, which is like the fourth movie I made, United Artists came in with a cardboard carton with 1,000 reviews from all over the country. And they said, why don't you read those reviews and give us a nice quote from each one that you want. We'll make up a big quote ad using 100 quotes or something. And I started reading them. And they were good reviews, 99% of them. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy likes this guy likes this, to this guy I'm a genius, to this guy I'm an idiot because I didn't know this and I copied this and I too slow here, and there I was revolutionary. And, I'm thinking, if I read through all of these, I learn nothing. Just you hear people's opinions on things. And so I put them aside. I said, you make up the quote ad you want. And I never, ever, ever looked at another word written about me in interviews, news stories, on television,